Welcome to Purposeful Productivity. My name is Chris Rivers, and I want to welcome you to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about the first step to increase your mental health. We are coming up on a new year, and so there's nothing better than to pause and to reflect. We don't often do that. We live in such a busy world. The world is screaming for our attention and our life, and so it's just sometimes very hard to pause and reflect. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed how traffic pulls over when an ambulance speeds by. But just like that ambulance, sometimes life signals that it's time to stop and assess. A couple years ago, I was introduced to this idea of taking time to reflect on what is going on in my life. And so I created a tool a couple years ago called the Perspectives Project. And before the end of the year, I stop and I assess. And it has been a great resource for me to evaluate my health in 5 key areas. And then when I'm finished, I normally try to kick off 30-day goals, which I have a tool that helps cultivate those goals. And then I have another tool called the Daily Dive that I use to then track those goals. I'll share more on our channel as we continue to flesh this idea out. And so this tool, the Perspectives Project, it focuses on 5 areas of health. It's got the spiritual, physical, vocational, relational, and financial. I kind of remember that by SMART plans very rarely fail. By assessing where I stand in those areas, in those buckets, I find a massive amount of clarity. And clarity, it is the first step towards getting healthy. If you want to get healthy, if you feel mentally that you're not there, you feel depressed, you feel sad, you feel lonely, sometimes the best thing that we can do is to pause and ask questions. Questions, they determine our focus. And once we get focused, we have more clarity into where we actually are. Let's just go through this tool, just help you see a little bit about it. If you want this tool, email me at chrisrivers@culturebus.cc and I'll send you a copy of it to get ready. But let's just kind of talk about it. The tool is broken up into 2 areas. So we have one section, which is a general examination of your life. And then the second section is uncovering 5 key areas. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to schedule some time to do this. I mentioned earlier that we live in a very busy world. And so if you don't do this, then it will never happen. And just looking at a sheet like this, you can go download this sheet and you can read these questions. But if you don't really take the time to write things out, you're not going to get the kind of mental health clarity and the strength that you need to endure. And a lot of life is just enduring. It's hard to live in a world that's broken. This is the way that we're going to get clear on some of that stuff. And so there's 11 questions that are in the general examination of my life. And so what I would do is space some of this out. How much time do I need to set aside? Maybe you put on your calendar for 25 minutes, you could do the Pomodoro technique and just time yourself and give yourself 20 minutes. I would say try to do this when you have the most energy. So I know for me in the mornings, I have a lot of energy. So if I'm going to work on these questions, I'm going to do them in the morning. Another thought would be if you are driving, you could voice text the answers into Google Keep Note, get in the car, read the first question, and then start driving and just think. And when you get to a red light, you could open up your phone and you could voice text the answer to that. I do that all the time. And that really helps me think. And some of my mental health is about just getting my thoughts down. And there's been many studies that say that if you journal, that this will help increase mental health. And so each of these buckets are going to help you get some clarity. So the first question, so let's say you wake up in the morning, you're going to make time for this, or you do it in the afternoon. The first question is, what are the most important events that have happened to me or in me this past year? So you're just going to take some time and write the answer to that question. This past year, I did a turkey trot in November. My oldest son moved home. That was important to me. I had a boss that was just very, very important in my life, a great mentor of mine. He left an organization that I was with. That was a big deal for me. And so just start writing the things that to answer that question. And so these questions will just kind of flow all the way down. You'll work through these questions. And then in the second piece, you're going to look at the 5 categories of your life. For the sake of time, time, let's talk about physical health. There are many studies that say that, man, if you can just get 10 minutes of walking today, or you get some sort of exercise, that will increase your mental health. But there are 4 questions in the physical health. The first one, what 5 words would I use to describe my physical health and well-being this past year? So what I wrote when I did this is consistent, fierce, aggressive, disciplined, and strong. So those were the 5 words I described my physical health and well-being this past year. And it took me some time to think through that. And there's reasons why I wrote each of those things down, but I spent at least 5 minutes thinking about that. How many hours of sleep can I honestly say I get each night? For this last year, I have averaged 7 hours and 38 minutes. Now, how did I find out about that? Well, I have an app on my phone. I have a Garmin watch that tracks my sleep. And so that was easy for me to get. You might not be able to get it to the minute, but you probably have a good idea. If you normally go to bed at 11 o'clock and wake up at 7, then you know kind of an idea of how much you get. So think about it in terms of that. Another question is, what choices have I given attention to regarding my physical health these past 12 months? So I did a turkey trot in November. That was fun last year. That kind of set the base for my training. I mean, I have been running. I've tried to be in between 180 and 185. I'm kind of a stocky person, but if I see the scale going over 185, pull back, figure out my diet, figure out what I'm doing to be physically fit. And so that's an example there. What specific goals do I want to achieve these coming 12 months? Well, this is a great question for goals, and you can kind of begin to think about that. I'll do another video later that is a tool that I have used for the past several years that just helps me figure out, like, what are the top things that I want to accomplish based on this tool, the Perspectives Project, and then creating 30-day goals. Here's the deal. When an ambulance does drive by, it signals that it's time to stop. And so I'm encouraging you to pay attention to the ambulance of life. I promise you that by assessing where you stand, you're going to find clarity. I had a mentor one time tell me that clarity isn't everything, but it changes everything. So clarity is going to be the first step towards getting healthy. And so if you're looking for a tool to help you pause, assess, and purposely drive forward, this is for you. It is the first step to increase your mental health. And just as traffic resumes after the ambulance has passed by, after working through the Perspective Project, you will feel equipped to re-enter your life strategy with a renewed focus and direction. So if you want to grab a copy of this tool, email me at chrisrivers@culturebus.cc. All right, well, hey, thanks for joining me on this journey to purposeful productivity. Don't forget to like and subscribe my channel. This is one of the ways that I can continue to bring you new content that helps you harness the power of purpose in every task. Remember, every task has a purpose, so let's discover it together.